Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are in the world. As usual, it's Jose here, welcoming you to an opinion piece. Another opinion piece. It's been a while since I have done one of these, and why not? It is with much sorrow that I'm actually doing this episode. It was brought to my attention, one of those YouTube recommends, whatever, about the lawsuit that has been filed against the company Wizards of the Coast by Margaret Weiss and Tracy Hickman. If you are aware who they are, or you follow my channel, you will know they are the authors of the original Dragonlance fantasy series, which is based in the Dungeons and Dragons role-playing game. Very close to my heart, very dear to me, and apparently they've been embroiled in a mess that I'm not going to try to summarize. I will leave. You can actually find, I've had a gander, I've had a look, you can actually find the actual documents of the lawsuit that have been filed by Weiss and Hickman online. I'll leave the link below if you actually fancy having a read there, casting your eyes on it. But I'm going to try to summarize here what the problem is. Now, let's understand here what Dragonlance is. So, back in 1983, some time ago, Weiss and Hickman wrote a campaign setting for the world of the role-playing game Dungeons and Dragons, and a series of novels spawned based around that campaign setting. Now remember, sales of the books, did a quick search, over 20-something million. All right, so it's a good product, it's a sellable product. There's a definite market there for it. Original trilogy published in 83, 84, 85. Then there was the Legends trilogy, both Chronicles and Legends. I've reviewed in the channel, as well as the second generation and Dragons of Summer Flame. Then there was the War of Souls trilogy, and there was a final trilogy which I haven't read, but I'm planning on to. But the last trilogy was written, the last book was published, I think it was in 2008, 2009. So it's been some time since. And we haven't heard in the world of Dragonlance since 2009. Now, bit of history. So, originally, the Dungeons and Dragons game and all the products, everything that went around with it, Dragonlance, Forgotten Realms, everything else, belonged to the original company, the creators of Dungeons and Dragons. The company was TSR. Now, as often happens, TSR wasn't run like a very good business, because what you had is very creative people, Dave Arneson, and all the people that invented the game, who were just gamers, and they had a company, and the company did well for a while because the game sold in the millions, but they didn't really know how to exploit the product in the best possible way. And then came the second edition, and eventually the company was losing money, and they got bought by Wizards of the Coast. Wizards of the Coast, from the Magic the Gathering and a few other things and bits and pieces there. And eventually, Wizards of the Coast was bought by Hasbro. Hasbro, the gaming company, Monopoly, millions of other things, toys, everything. And Wizards of the Coast is now a subsidiary fully owned by Hasbro that runs Magic the Gathering, Dungeons and Dragons, everything else. And there's actually been some sort of crossover. There's been like a Magic the Gathering campaign setting for Dungeons and Dragons. Anyway, I digress, but now you know. So the problem is, from my perspective, my understanding is that TSR was a company of creative, fanatic people, gamers, not very good businessmen. It got bought by Wizards of the Coast, and now what you've got is a company with a company thinking, running the game in a much different way than how it was originally conceived. I've been playing, or I've played, I would like to start playing the game. Anyway, I've played Dungeons and Dragons from 1st edition, 2nd edition, 3rd edition, 4th edition, and the latest 5th edition. So I've played them all, not as extensively as I would like, but I have. And the game is unrecognizable in its present incarnation from what it was back in the 80s and 90s. and the crux here, and the problem is, Wizards of the Coast have been embroiled in some accusations of sexism, racism, and all sorts of isms, which I'm not going to delve into. I'm not going to explore. You can Google it, figure out for yourself what the problems were. But anyway, because that's really important. That's what has derailed, and that's what has ended up in the lawsuit, all these accusations. So, Margaret Weiss and Tracy Hickman do not own the rights to Dragonlance, even though they are the creators. So the way it works, back in the day, and this also happened in the world of comics, the creators do not own the product. The company owns them. So at the time TSR, now Wizards of the Coast, they own the rights to Dragonlance. And then if you want to do something with the world of Dragonlance, you have to license. It works in a licensing agreement, so you have to then pay Wizards or reach some sort of agreement where then they give you the right to exploit and do something with them, and there's some sort of share of the profits of in some manner, whatever, right? So, and the way I say it, the way I understand it, my impression is that Wizards of the Coast doesn't give a hoot about Dragonlance. They do give a hoot about Dungeons and Dragons, but they really don't know what they want to do with Dragonlance. There has been, I think as far as I aware, since second edition, since back in 1990 or whatever, there hasn't been a Dragonlance campaign setting for Dungeons and Dragons. Certainly there hasn't been one for 5th edition. The novels haven't been republished. I mean, the original novels only sold in paperback, and eventually they became so popular that then hardback copies were made. But since the last trilogy in 2009, there's been no new editions of those books. You can only buy them secondhand. Anyway, Wizards is not really exploiting the Dragonlance franchise, the Dragonlance world. They don't really know what to do with it. So, Margaret Weiss, Tracy Hickman decide they want to write one final trilogy, like to wrap it all up. I don't know how, because to me, the actual Dragonlance finished in Dragons of Summer Flame. But anyway, that's a different story. The creators, they want to write one final trilogy, and I'm pretty certain there would have been demand for it. Dragonlance was a much beloved world and campaign setting for Dungeons and Dragons. So they get in contact with Wizards of the Coast, they enter into the licensing agreement, they write. I think they wrote the first 2 novels. So they wrote the first novel, they wrote the second novel in the trilogy. All of a sudden, Wizards of the Coast pulls out of the deal. There's going to be no final trilogy, hence the lawsuit. Why is there going to be no final trilogy? Remember, I told you about the sexism, racism, ism. Turns out, because Wizards of the Coast has been embroiled in all these problems, and I'm not going to judge whether they are true or not. I don't know enough about it, okay? What I do know is that Wizards of the Coast, amongst its stuff, counts, watch this, sensitivity readers. So Wizards of the Coast pays people to read the books that they're going to publish, or the cards from Magic the Gathering that they're going to print and sell, all that kind of stuff, to read and look for things to be upset about. That's what a sensitive reader is. Come on, people, get with the program. If you're going to be a sensitive reader, sensitivity reader, awareness reader, you're not going to get paid for reading a book and giving your opinion and saying it's okay. If you're a sensitive reader, you're going to get paid for reading a book, finding things to be upset about, and therefore people think you're doing your really good job because you're finding a lot of things that we're being insensitive about these days. In the current day and age, you cannot do, say, certain things, yeah? So, well done. The more things you find to be upset about, the better sensitive reader you are, the more culturally aware, progressive company that we are, the better we're going to look. And now that has come bite them in the arse, because turns out Wizards of the Coast didn't like what Margaret Weiss and Tracy Hickman had done with this latest trilogy. They were right. I can't even think what they could have done that they didn't like, because there's nothing remotely sexist, racist, exist in Dragonlance. But hey ho, turns out Weiss and Hickman decided, yes, they will do the changes. They will incorporate diversity, all that kind of stuff that Wizards of the Coast wants to sell, wants people to see them as. They did, they incorporated the changes. And still Wizards of the Coast backed out of the agreement, worth potentially $10 million to the authors, because the authors reached an agreement with Penguin Random House to publish the novel. So it was all in place, and now Wizards of the Coast thinks that the novels are not sensitive enough. Like I said, I don't know why. And this is where I'm gonna chuck in my thoughts, and you people can agree or disagree with me. Because when I first read this and I watched this and I saw this months ago, whatever it was, stupidity to the power. So it turns out that now Dungeons and Dragons, you can read it, you Google it. I'm not even gonna bother linking it here. Apparently, Dungeons and Dragons is a racist game. And do you know why? Orcs. And you know why orcs? And why it's racist? Because orcs are the bad guys, and apparently orcs are black. So we are depicting black people as the bad guys, and therefore the game is what the actual. First of all, orcs aren't black; they're green. And I'm not entirely sure. Help me out, okay? Please help me out. If you're a black person, or you know a black person, that there are some black people in the world, turns out I'm married to one. If you're a black person and you see an orc, Lord of the Rings, any game, or whatever, and do you see yourself represented there? Oh my god, that movie is racist because the orcs are black, which they're not, they're green, and therefore, what the actual, come on, honestly, is that the issue? That there are not enough gay characters in the books? They said they changed them, I don't know, no one's read the books, but apparently they wrote the first two books and they made their changes. What is going on here? Wizards of the Coast, they're not watching this, but I'm gonna pretend I'm talking to them. Wizards of the Coast, if you don't know what to do with Dragonlance, sell the rights back to the authors. I don't know. I will happily support a crowdfunding whatever to get Weiss and Hickman the rights back to Dragonlance so they can exploit it as they see fit. I will pre-buy the new trilogy they're gonna write without knowing what it is about. I will pre-buy it so that they can actually get the rights back and bring it back and do something properly with it. I would love to see a Dragonlance campaign setting for Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition. I'll happily play the hell out of it. I'll read the novels. I would love to see some kind of adaptation, much better than the crappy first movie they did on Chronicles, the cartoon weird one. It's somewhere there on YouTube, you can watch it. It's bad, but I watched it. Dungeons, Dragons. So yeah, I mean that's where we are. That's where we stand. A totally stupid situation doesn't paint Wizards of the Coast in the best possible way. I got sucked into Magic the Gathering when I was a kid, sort of when it hit big or when it first appeared in Spain. But I realized very, very quickly how expensive the game was and how it's just a machine to keep you spending money. Whereas Dungeons and Dragons, let's be honest here, you only need to buy 2 books and you're good to go for the rest of your life. I still got my second edition hardback covers that I bought back in 1990 or 1980, whatever it was. I still got everything there, and the game still playable. That's the beautiful thing about role-playing games. But anyway, so just to wrap it up, and also the reason why. So there's a bit of backlash against Dungeons and Dragons from minority diversity people, and the reason there's a backlash is the following: a lot of fantasy, a lot of modern fantasy, that's changing a bit now, but a lot of modern fantasy is based off Tolkien. All right, and now we know Tolkien was a man of his time, fought in World War One. British to the core, professor at Oxford, translated the great Viking saga Beowulf into English. He wrote The Lord of the Rings, very heavily influenced by what he knew, medieval Europe, the Viking sagas, all the stuff. So his fantasy world is very European centered, and it reflects, those kind of cultures and so on. And because Tolkien is Tolkien, and it was so influential, a lot of fantasy that followed kind of feeds of it, and it kind of follows the same tropes. It's all very European centered. And I'm sorry to say, people, in case you weren't aware, in medieval Europe, there weren't a lot of diverse minority people out there. There weren't very many black people in medieval Europe. And unfortunately, the people that medieval Europe fought against were Muslim, were from Africa, Middle East, over there, because religion, Christianity, crusades, and all the stuff. So in medieval Europe depictions, the evil person is the Turk, the Ottoman Empire, the Muslims, and all the stuff. I'm not saying all Muslim people, all Turkish people, all Arab people, I'm not saying they are evil, I'm not saying that. Potentially, if you come from those non-European backgrounds, I can see why you might think that the game of Dungeons and Dragons isn't diverse enough, or the world of fantasy. But that's changing now. But again, the new edition of Dungeons and Dragons is so different from the original one. They are trying that. I mean, and the beautiful thing is that the game is so sandboxy, open plan that you can be however you want to be, and there's nothing, you know. They even had but even back in the 90s, I think for second edition there was a special samurai sort of expansion thing, so you could do campaign settings in the Far East and stuff. There's nothing racist about the game and how it is currently designed, and for that matter, how it was currently designed back in the 90s when I used to play it. Your character could be whatever you want it to be. Your only limits when you play Dungeons and Dragons is your own imagination. You can take that game and you can create your own world, and if your own world is medieval Europe based, so be it. But if you want your world to be some sort of island archipelago in the Caribbean where people are black, it can be that as well. That's the beauty of the game. That's the beauty of the novels, that's the beauty of Dragonlance. And you either like it or you don't, or you buy it or you don't. But you don't complain the game is racist, and therefore weird butterfly in Africa, hurricane in the Caribbean, we end up having no new Dragonlance trilogy. Weird, very weird. It's a kind of video I didn't want to do, a little bit ranty. Wizards of the Coast, I don't think you know what you're doing. You know, please, somehow, it'd be great if Margaret Weiss and Tracy Hickman got the rights back for Dragonlance and they were allowed to do the thing. And if people feel offended by it, they will feel offended and they will not buy it. And some people will not feel offended, they will like it and they will buy it. And that's how things should work, in my opinion. Thank you very much for watching. As usual, please like, subscribe, comment, let me know, have I got it wrong, am I being a moron, am I being insensitive, did you not care, do you not care, you haven't watched this, you don't give a flying, whatever. Please spread the message, spread the love, take lots of care, and I'll see you soon. Bye.